Hello and welcome to the latest episode of the Low Budget Review Show. I'm your host, Eric Smith, and today I'm talking about Bonesy, a Renner Quist adventure by Mark Rigney. This is from Sam Hain Publishing, and it comes out on September 1st. So once again, fortunately I'm ahead of the curve on this one and getting my review out there before the book actually comes out. Yay! So with Bonesy, we have Reverend Renner, and his mentor, Iris Buckhalter, comes to visit him, and she tells him that she's got this old brass rubbing of a skeleton that she's got framed and hanging on the wall, and she calls it Bonesy, and she's sort of become obsessed with it. She can't stop thinking about it, and she thinks that Bonesy's getting into her dreams and giving her these weird nightmares. So she wants to give Bonesy to Renner to look after, and she doesn't really give Renner any choice. She's like, here's Bonesy, take it. So Renner hangs Bonesy up on the wall, and Bonesy breaks free of her frame and escapes. So Renner calls his buddy Dale Quist, and they need to figure out what Bonesy is searching for and how to capture her and put her back, I guess. I don't know. Anyway, I don't want to say exactly what happens. That's it in a nutshell. As usual, my really quick, possibly confusing synopsis to get you interested. And you should be, because this is good stuff. This is the fifth Renner Quist adventure. The first was just a short story. And I believe then there are 2 novellas and then 2 novels, this being the most recent. You don't have to have read any of the other stuff to pick this up and enjoy it, which is a good thing, because I have not read any of the others. I definitely am going to, because I really, really enjoyed this book. There are quite a few references to some of the earlier stories, but it doesn't confuse anything or muddle anything. It actually just made me more intrigued to read the other stories. Mark Rigney's writing in this is very good, and one of the things I like the most is that the story is told from 2 different perspectives. Every odd-numbered chapter is told by Renner, and every even-numbered chapter is told by Quist. And they have very distinct voices. Renner is very formal, for lack of a better word, whereas Quist, who is a former Texan, is more laid back with a southern drawl, a very comfortable storyteller. And this takes place primarily in Michigan. That's where they're both living. Reverend Renner, of course, is a reverend, runs a church, and Dale Quist, who is a former football player and private detective, and now owns a bunch of cabins on the lake that he rents out to people. So they're both kind of just living their lives and come together for these supernatural adventures. They both have been touched by the supernatural, and it's given them this sort of spider sense for weirdness. Whenever they're in the presence of something supernatural or odd, they get this tight feeling in the back of their neck. So really, a couple of great characters, and very distinct styles in the way they tell their stories. So that's a nice accomplishment from the actual author, Mark Rigney. Reverend Renner, really interesting character. I kept feeling like I'd forgotten his first name as I was reading the book, and they would just call him Renner or Reverend. And I was like, did I miss when somebody said his first name? But it turns out he doesn't have one. He's just Renner. And he used to be, when he was younger, he was into the punk scene, apparently a bit of a troublemaker. And obviously he found God and has been focusing on religion and more recently fighting the supernatural, apparently. Dale Quist, as I said, from Texas, played football, was a private detective in California. Now he's ended up in Michigan, just trying to run his cabins on the lake. Iris Buckhalter, very interesting, very fun character. And Bonesy is actually pretty interesting. For those who don't know, a brass rubbing, I'm no expert or anything, but essentially they had these, I think they're bas reliefs, what do they call them, in churches over in England and I'm sure everywhere else. And what you can do, you go to these old churches where they have these, and they would give you a piece of paper and a crayon, essentially, and you put the paper down, and you rub the crayon over it, and the image comes up on the paper. So that's basically what Bonesy is, just a piece of paper and crayon. But somehow Bonesy pulls herself out of the frame, starts searching for something. And as I said, excuse me, Renner and Quist have to figure out what it is and how they're going to get Bonesy back in the frame. And amazingly, Mark Rigney made me feel something for a brass rubbing. I guess Bonesy as a character, is really a very fleshed out character. No pun in, well, I don't know. Would that be a pun? It's not really a pun. I don't know, because it's a skeleton thing. It's Bonesy, and I said fleshed out. Get it? I don't know. I'm a little loopy. Anyway, so very enjoyable. I definitely want to go back and read the other Renner and Quist adventures, and I hope there's more Renner and Quist adventures, because these are great characters, and it's always nice to find a good series with good characters. I feel like this is the point, a good point to find these characters, because now there's 4 more stories that I can go back and read. I can find their old stuff and spend a little more time with them, and maybe that'll give Mark Rigney time to write some more, so I won't run out of Renner and Quist, maybe. Because, yeah, really good characters. There is a bit of a B story with Dale Quist that, personally, I figured it out immediately. I think if you're a big horror fan and you know a lot of different myths and legends and creatures and whatever, I mean, if you're well versed in all the different types of horrors, you probably won't be surprised. But almost immediately, probably the second chapter that Quist was narrating, if not the first, I immediately knew what was going on with him. But it's still interesting, and didn't know how they would figure it out, how they would deal with it. So there's a lot going on. It doesn't just stay in Michigan. They do some traveling. We meet some more interesting characters. And one of the advantages to having 2 different people telling the story is we do, at different points, both Renner and Quist are knocked out of commission, and while we do lose their point of view on what's going on while they're knocked out of commission, we don't lose any of the story, because the other person can take over and tell us what's happening. Let's say, you know, Quist can tell us what's going on while Renner's out of commission, which is a nice... I don't know if every Renner and Quist story does this back and forth, but it's a great device in this story. I do like this cover. Very, very cool. Slightly subdued with that splash of red. So, yes, I highly recommend this. I definitely want to check out the rest. I wasn't going to try to draw Bonesy. Originally, I was hoping there was more of the skull showing. I would have just copied what was here, but this wasn't going to work for me. So I went pretty simple with my rating. Not even sure it translates well, but I gave Bonesy by Mark Rigney 5 out of 5 empty picture frames. I tried to, this is the empty spot where Bonesy was. I guess. Anyway, there it is. I'm getting a lot of glare on here. 5 out of 5 empty picture frames for Bonesy. Very entertaining. Great characters. A really interesting story. With that B story going on as well. But it all ties together really nicely. Really ties together nicely. Yeah. So, there you have it. My very rambling, I think, review of the fantastic Renner and Quist adventure, Bonesy. As always, I will have links for this book in the description below, so you can pre-order it if you like. Of course, I'll have a link for Sam Hain and a link for Amazon. And if you want to look for the other Renner and Quist adventures, those links, of course, will lead you to other links, so you don't have to. I'm not going to put them all in there. Please, if you have any comments, questions, or corrections, please put them in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. I think that covers it. So there you have it. Bonesy, Mark Rigney, the Low Budget Review Show, Eric Smith. Until next time, read more books.